Hey, welcome to another segment of Sonny Metcalf Talk is Cheap. This show, as I was saying earlier on in the lead-in, we get a little serious. And again, like I said, these are tough days for us, tough conversations. My guest I have with me right now is Miss Sharon Williams. And I met Miss Sharon Williams through, I want to say it right. I could never say it right. But BB Watutu Center.
That's
Is that
right. That's almost right.
Oh, that's almost right. That's close enough. But what was that Mobili Watutu Center all about?
The Mobili Watoto Center
Watoto, okay.
was a center that I took over from Khatib Wahid. It was his last year with Caring Communities.
Okay.
And since my church owned the building and I was a youth minister, they asked me to take it over for that last year. And I took it over, and I did a few things differently than the way they were doing it. So even though, there was the same kids coming in, we made it so that it was more like a social gathering,
Right.
as opposed to a gang abatement trying to, reform the kids all the time. And it seemed to work out a lot better. We did get to involve a lot of different groups in the community.
Yeah, that's how I met you through the dancers and the singers would come
Exactly.
over and hang out, and we had a great time every time we come over there.
We
right?
did, yeah. Especially my son, when you boys said the entertainer in. He fell asleep. He couldn't wait till he got there.
Yeah, that was a blessing that Eric Rohn and said the entertainer came over to her center and stayed there for a while, didn't
Sure
we? We
did.
just sat there and we talked and everything. It was really gracious of them to spend the time at her center.
Right.
Again, so that's how we met, and I'm blessed in that. Fortunately, that most of the people that I've met in my life has always been through positive experiences, but during that process of us knowing each other, sometimes life is just a mix of experiences and things like that, and one of the things that the reason why I have Miss Sharon here today is that she's one of the strongest women that I know. What she did for those kids in that community, raising them, and then she's the sister of Theta.
Yeah.
Theta Prison with Looking for an Angel. Is that right?
Yes.
See, I don't know
Yes.
what I'm talking about sometimes. But anyway, with the Kristen Ferguson situation, we're not going to talk about that because that's a very touchy subject, very personal. I think it's ongoing right now,
Right.
as far as the case and things like that. But even closer to Miss Sharon, when we were at the center,
Yes.
I met her son.
Yes.
Her son, and he was boxing then, wasn't he?
No, he played basketball.
Okay.
But he was actually painting all the murals on the walls.
Right,
and-
I knew he was always there and
Right,
active.
yeah.
Didn't talk a lot. But
No,
he's
he was
around.
quiet,
He's
yeah.
quiet, but he was there, and his presence was felt all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're talking about addressing gun violence, and we get gun violence in so many ways. In other words, through unsolved murders, through accidental murders, through just, what is the problem, Again, I'm just saying a rhetorical question. Is it the people or is it the guns? Apparently it's a combination of both. You hear people saying that people don't kill people, guns kill people. And the other way around, the people that are against guns say it's not people that kill, it's guns kill people. NRA just wanted to believe that it's people that
Exactly.
kill people, not the guns. But
Right.
if you make it easy for people to do things, then
That's right. Easy access. Right.
yeah. So the jury's still out on that because you'll get here arguing about it back and forth. But something tragic happened to you in those years
Yes.
that I was working with you and you were working with me with my
Right.
WBMS program.
Yes, that's right. I actually started Mobili Watoto, Quick Girls Inc. and started Mobili Watoto to help my sister look for her son. And in the process of helping her look for her son, and then going and meeting with you again up at I think
Miss Fowler.
Miss Fowler
Mhm.
was running the
West
center,
End Center,
in West
right.
End Center.
West End Community Conference.
And I came in one day and I met with Deborah Ahmed, and we started running summer camp together.
Exactly.
And in the process of doing that, my son, who had been coming to the center, the gang abatement center that I was running, and he was starting to hang out with some of the guys in the neighborhood, which he probably shouldn't have been doing. And I warned him not to. But in the process of doing that, he fell in with that crowd and thought that they were his friends and found out that they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And he got killed on June 2nd, 2008, over in the Walnut Park neighborhood, down the street, 2 blocks from where I had my center.
Right.
And it was tragic
It's
for
very
me
simple.
because I was in the process of helping young people.
Exactly. That's something,
And,
the very thing that you were trying to
exactly.
avoid, to help young people avoid.
Yeah.
Your son fell
They'll
prey to.
pray to the same thing that I was trying to keep from happening to other young people in their neighborhood, and had gone to maybe about 20 to 25 funerals of young people that I knew prior to my son. And he was actually number 24. And I had warned him about this, that march, and I told him you're with the wrong crowd. You need to stop doing this. You need to be productive. That's why we're here, to help young people learn how to do things productive. But somehow he fell with that crowd, and they took his life. And I vowed that I would never go back to that neighborhood again.
I can understand that would be tough. And again,
Right.
and that's these young people that have access to guns. When I was a kid growing up, we fought in the streets and stuff, but we lived to fight another day.
Right.
And then in a lot of cases, the guy who you had the beef with, that you were fighting, turned out to be your best friend the next day.
Right.
You come to find out y'all had more in common than you had
Exactly.
differences. And but with this easy access
Yes.
to deadly weapons, we got to stop calling them guns.
Mhm.
These are deadly weapons.
They are.
Period. Whether the policeman got them, because when the policeman usually fires off one of these, the results are usually
That's right.
deadly.
Yes.
Anytime you hear these guns being fired off, they're considered that you have deadly results.
Mhm.
I can understand why the United States government can ban so many substances and things like that that will kill you if you take them, but yet they will allow people to have a deadly weapon. You have to be licensed to carry guns sometimes, but criminals don't need licenses to kill.
Right.
That's obvious,
Right.
So all the things that people talk about as far as the NRA, I'm not into that political stuff. I'm into hard tax.
Yes.
A gun is a gun,
It's a gun.
whether it's held against the head of the president of the United States
That's right.
or a bomb sleeping on a bridge.
Yes.
Pull the trigger, same result. It's a
That's right.
deadly weapon. Why are we allowing people to manufacture deadly weapons?
And having
And
the
then-
same results every
Exactly.
single year.
And then you'll have that argument that, well, these are underground things. These aren't the licensed legal manufacturers not doing this. These are guns are coming in
Mhm.
underneath the radar and stuff like that. Yeah, make any excuse you want.
Right.
The kids are still getting their hands on
They
these
are.
guns.
And where does the
And-
responsibility lay?
Yeah, exactly. Who's going to be responsible for them? And
Mm-hmm.
that's a hard pill to swallow, because I know young people
Right.
who handle guns, who have done things with guns, and when they don't have the guns around them, these are pretty good
They are.
people.
Yes.
But you got to pay the price. When you somehow young people got to understand that the use of a deadly weapon pays more serious consequences. I've known people that use deadly weapons and have gotten slapped with maybe 2 or 3 years in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've known some that have just flashed a gun at somebody and got 5 or 10 years in jail.
Right. Yeah. That the
Where's the reason,
consequences of having the gun in the first place is something that I don't think young people really understand. Just because you have a gun in your hand doesn't make you tougher than the guy that doesn't have one.
Now, I always say if I live in a neighborhood where I had to have a gun, then it's time for me to move to another neighborhood.
Yeah.
You just don't
Right.
build your foundation
And
on
then it's the
fear.
choices that you make in life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, like I said, what happened to your son? This gun thing. I don't have the answer. If I had the
Yes.
answer, we would have solved this problem a long time ago.
It's
A long
a
time
continuous
ago.
thing.
It is.
My son got killed in 2008. It's 2022. A friend of my girlfriend's son got killed around the corner at the tavern down over the corner off of McLaren, I think that is, not McLaren, yeah, on Natural Bridge. And it's been 14 years and they're still being killed in the street. They're still running from the police. They're still handling guns. Families are still being torn apart by gun use or the misuse of guns. And I think that as long as there is no responsibility from every entity, the NRA, in the home, the police, as long as kids and young men or young women have access to guns, or anybody have the access to them and not be responsible for them, we're going to have this continuous misuse and misappropriation.
And I was told this, I don't know how factual it is, like when they have these big gun shows in the area, okay, and a lot of these guys will go to these gun shows. They would take their girlfriends, you know, our young ladies sometimes, you know, even though we get some that are getting crazy too, usually have their act together. So they would take their girlfriends to the gun show with them because their girlfriends can clear purchasing a gun to get a gun from them.
Yes.
So the gun shows are catering to
That's right.
these kids. And I'd never been to one before, so I don't know how factual it is, but I was told that there are a lot of young African American males go to these gun shows because they know they can get past the system.
And somebody's going to sell it to
them. So nobody's monitoring them, you know.
Right.
They outlawed fireworks in certain parts of the city, you know, but they won't outlaw a gun, you know.
People want their guns, and I mean they fight tooth and nail to have their guns in this country. And I don't know if it's a capitalistic thing or it's an American thing, but you just don't have these things happen in other countries as they do here.
They sure don't. What is it in England? The police department, they don't even carry guns.
They don't carry guns. Billy sticks. They don't.
No, they don't carry guns. You know, again, like I said, and I don't understand it. I always ask the question, what is a gun for? Right. Can somebody, do you know what a gun is for? What is it used for?
Yes.
What's the purpose of a gun?
Yes.
First thing somebody jump on, it's for protection. Huh? If I need to live somewhere again, like I said, where I need a gun to protect myself, it's time for me to find someplace else to live.
Time to go.
If I have to carry a gun, if I have to carry a gun because I say I'm going to be out in the streets and I never know when I'm going to use it, then I'm going to the wrong places.
Right. But
it could happen anywhere, of course, but still, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to flip the script a little bit with you, Sonny, because in working with young people, you know, as we have been doing, I've done for 30 years, and I've decided to start taking a different approach with them, you know, in the later years as to, you know, why do they carry? Why are you carrying this gun? Why do you have this gun? And a lot of them are afraid. They're afraid. They may not be the type of kid to carry a gun, but they have one because they're afraid of the ones who are carrying them, you know, and you need to protect yourself. And my outlook on gun violence changed after my son got killed. I was an advocate of kids and people not having guns. And after working with young people, after my son was murdered and being upset because he got murdered by some young men who I knew, that I took care of, that I fed, but you took the life of my son and then you turned around and told me, well, it wasn't supposed to be him, you know, but it's too late now. I changed my thought of why these young men carry these guns and how we should adapt to their reality of it.
Exactly.
And
well, you know, we're gonna take a quick break and let's talk about that a little more because let's look at this perspective. You said you changed your perspective on it.
I changed my perspective on young people and why they felt the need to carry guns and that guns were unnecessary for them to have. I had a young man who was in the 6th grade. He had 2 brothers. One brother was 14 and he was at the school that we were at. So 2 brothers were there and another brother who was like 18. Some people kicked in their house. They shot and killed the 18-year-old in the house. The 17-year-old and the young man that I know ran out the back door. Their parent was called. 2 days later, the kids came back to school. The young man told me, he said, I need to leave the program early. Why do you need to leave early? The buses aren't leaving. I'm not taking the bus home. I said, well, what are you doing? He said, well, I need to go get something if I ride the bus. And I said, okay, well, where you got to go get it? I'll walk you to it. So we went to the school door, and he opened up the door and said, can you hold the door? And he said, don't be surprised. And he went over to the bush, and he dug up. He was digging around for something. And all of a sudden, I saw the barrel of a gun come out. And I'm standing there watching this kid in the 6th grade take this gun and put it in his backpack. And he says, can I get on the bus? And I said, no, you need to come with me. And he said, don't turn me in because they killed my brother a couple of days ago. And now they chasing my other brother. And I'm scared.
Yeah. That fear where these kids feel that they have to have a gun.
That's right. And as an adult, what do? As an adult, do you take this kid and turn him in? Do you take the gun from the kid and call the police? He's already traumatized.
Yeah.
There's a lot of decisions that have to be made.
So what decision did you make with him?
The decision that I made was I brought him back in. I did not let him ride the bus home. I ended up calling his mother, and I told her what he had. And she begged me not to turn him in. She asked me if she could come to the school and get him. And I said, I will keep him here with me. And I'm going to turn the gun over to you. I have the book bag. I'll turn it over to you. I said, and I will inform the office tomorrow that this is what happened. This is an after-school program.
Right.
And I said, I don't know what the consequences are going to be, but I'm going to tell them exactly what he told me. And they already know his situation. So they didn't suspend him or anything, but what they did do, I asked them to bring a counselor in to speak with him at the school.
Yeah, that
and
is, you know.
It helped a lot, you know, with that. He was still scared, but he came to me at the end of the school year, and he gave me a big old hug, and he said, we moved. I don't have to be afraid anymore.
That's good. That's my philosophy. If I have to live in fear, it's time for me to move somewhere else.
But some people said I should have turned him in to the police.
Well, you use your judgment. And again, like I said, there's no one fix to this thing.
Exactly.
We already know that. But then when you're talking about the young man and the gun that he had hidden, I'm thinking about the young guys that I know. Now, I actually had an experience with this maybe no more than maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, where a young guy showed me his gun pulling out the hip. But his reason for having the gun wasn't to protect himself. His reason for having the gun is somebody pissed me off, I'm gonna put a cap in them.
That's another scenario.
Those the ones we gotta worry about, you know.
It's a lot
Some of them
different.
carry guns not for protection, because they feel that if anybody, you know, cross them up, you know, that's how they're gonna handle the problem, you know, not punch their lights out or not just leave them alone.
Right.
They're gonna put a bullet in them.
Exactly. But then you still have that in the back of your head. There's another young person. How do we reach that person so that they don't use that gun, so that they do think about, you know, the consequences of their actions? Because when you take a life of someone, you have to remember there's a lot of people who love that person. You know.
So that's when it goes down to that, what we were saying. That's the only way they know how to solve their problems is with a gun. The gun has become the essential part of their life as far as survival. You know, not getting a good job.
It's just like
and not
can't
getting
leave
an
the house
education,
without
but get a gun first. You know, that way, you know, it's horrible. You know, the gun violence. We could talk about it for days. Like this talk that me and Miss Sharon are having. I hope you guys kind of listen to it and just start forming some of your own opinions about it. Because there could be 100 people in the room, and I can almost guarantee every one of those 100 people going to have a different view on how to deal with this, how to deal with the gun violence. I just say to parents is to be consistent with your kids. If it's wrong today, then it's wrong tomorrow.
Yes.
Just keep telling them, and your kids may listen to you and still do it. They may not listen to you and don't do it, you know, but because they'll start thinking about it. But I just say, just keep preaching the message. Keep making the young kids aware of this is not how you solve your problems. Like the center you had, the programs, just try and get them involved in programs, whereas this type of activity you
It's
know.
an alternative to the things that
Exactly.
you think you.
Because no matter where you go, and you know the sad part about it, like I said, you know the days that I feel best is with the days I don't look at the news.
Yes.
Because when I look at the news, somebody always getting shot. If they're not getting shot
First
around the
10,
corner
15
from me,
minutes
they
on
getting
the
shot
street.
in Russia
That's
or
right.
somewhere else. You know, deadly force is what this world is. The foundation of this world is deadly force.
Right.
In other words, we just hear it on the news all the time.
We do.
We read about it all the time. We're bombarded with Russia's doing this to this country, so to that to this country. So our kids see this. So if it's all right for them to do it,
That's right.
it's all right for me
And
to
they're
protect
doing
myself.
it on
You
their
know,
games. They're doing it with the video games that they play. They're playing on their
all the
phones
video
with it.
games. Oh
They're
man, tell
buying
me
the
about it.
guns and the water guns, and people don't, understand what happened to Tamir Rice. He
Mm-hmm.
had a play gun, and the police ended up shooting him.
That is definitely when you start
It's
talking about video games.
devastating.
It seems like every time I look at a video game, somebody's shooting somebody.
Yeah, yep,
You know,
yep.
somebody's shooting somebody. Even if they shooting ping pong balls at somebody, you know, they shooting something at somebody. So again, like I said, is
I
yeah,
wanted
Ms.
to-
Sharon, what happened with you? You experienced it firsthand. You've been living it.
Right, yeah.
You know, every day of your life, ever since your son was murdered,
Yeah,
and
It's-
then
it's
being
a
around
struggle.
kids and seeing other kids that have
gone.
fought to the same faith as well.
And in working with a youth, for 30 years plus that I did, and even with some of the young people up at the Demetrius Johnson Center where we
Mhm.
were, I've seen some of those kids on television,
Oh, yeah.
being handcuffed, and we tried our best to reach them through the program that
Absolutely.
we were doing, and we were unable to prevent them from doing what they did then, but
Mhm.
when we had them under our care,
Right.
at least we knew that they were being supervised. And
Mhm.
so it's so important that we find structure for our young
Absolutely.
people so that they don't go down that road. And the other thing that I want to speak about, because it's May, it's Mental Health Month,
Mhm.
and this was a traumatizing experience for me. I didn't think I was going to make it through. I was having panic attacks. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't breathe. Every young man walking down the street with dreads, I thought was my son. My daughters couldn't sleep. My youngest son didn't know why I didn't let him go anywhere or do anything because I was afraid of losing my last son. I couldn't do it. But it's Mental Health Week, and it's survivors of crime, are the hardest people to work with because they're not actually the victims, but they have to deal with the aftermath.
Right.
And after you lose a loved one to gun violence or any type of violence, that's the hardest thing because there's no answers to why or if the person never got caught. They never caught the people who killed my son. And it did make me bitter at some point. But I had to let it go and move on. And after seeing that I would never go back to the neighborhood that my son was killed in, I did go back last year. And I did a book bag giveaway drive for 200 kids. And it was the best feeling in the world because I felt as though I had conquered not the fear of being there, but the anger of losing my son to that neighborhood. The neighborhood where I grew up.
Right.
The neighborhood that I knew. The people coming out the houses who knew me from running the center, that grew up in the neighborhood, that knew me personally as from a kid, and moving out the way and letting me get to my son because they said, we know you and we're sorry, that this happened. And sorry didn't matter to me at that point.
Right.
But it's people like you and people like DJ and people like TD Elamine, who actually got me the interview after my son got murdered, who helped me to build that sense of community again. Because when your loved one is taken by the community becomes the person that you're mad at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say this too. Again, I don't know if people say I'm maybe crazy for saying this, but the young men and women who are pulling the trigger, the ones that are causing this gun violence out there, we really need to reach out to them and pray for them too. You know, in other words, because for them to do something like that, like you said, this is
Right.
mental health month. They have to be hurting. Something has to be bothering them inside for you to take another life. There has to be something not right in your life.
Right.
So I'm not saying so much be sympathetic towards them based on what they did,
Right.
but they are still a person,
Yeah.
and there may have been something in their life. And if we can begin to understand that, maybe we can prevent some of our young kids from growing up and
down
falling
that
prey
route,
to that.
falling prey to
But
it.
feel something. It's hard to say this because I know if one of my brothers or sisters, somebody was just murdered by somebody,
Yeah.
it would be hard to feel compassion for the person
Right.
who did it.
Right.
But I'm pushed to. That's
Yes,
just me, you
yes.
know.
And you don't
'cause
have to be sympathize with them, but
Right.
empathize with
Exactly. I don't have to, like I said, you don't have to,
Right.
just because I don't agree with you, that don't mean I
them.
don't,
Exactly.
I don't
I'm
understand,
condoning
you know,
what you
exactly.
did, right?
But sometimes we got to make sure, just channel that anger. That's one of the best ways you can help other
right.
people. Again, like I said, it's very important that we understand that there's gun violence. I go back to say, is it guns the problem or is it people the
That's
problem?
right.
And I just say that when you mix the two together, that's
It's
the
hard,
problem.
yeah.
How do you keep them
Separate.
separate? How do you separate guns from people? You know, and how do you identify people that feel that they don't need a gun? And sometimes they may fall victim to it, but at the same time, you got people who feel they need a gun, and
Right.
these accidental shooting, kids
Yeah.
finding guns,
They do.
and
Yep.
and you mad, and in one fit of anger,
That's right.
if I didn't have a gun, I may
Maybe.
swing on you or
That's
something,
right. There's
and
something
that's
else
it.
could have happened. Something
as
else
opposed to me
occurred.
pulling the gun
Right.
and making it final. You
Yeah.
know.
And then the last thing I want to say is that, when my son was murdered, and it was in the neighborhood where I grew up at, it was around the church that I went to church there for 30 years. I went to school there in that neighborhood. I knew the people who lived in the neighborhood, that the thugs, everybody else, those used to be my friends, and the people that did well in the neighborhood, I knew them. But sometimes when things happen and you expect certain people to step up to the plate, to be a witness, to sympathize with you and to say, oh, I saw that happen, or this is what happened, and they don't. And then you become angry because you feel as though all these things that I have done for this community and for these people, and you don't step up to the plate and say, hey, we know, who did this, and 14 years and nobody has ever said anything about what happened to my son. A young lady came to work at the center, and she used to be at the center with me, and she was there doing her internship at DJ Center, and she came in and she said, Miss Sharon, the person, one of the guys who you killed your son, he's dead now. And it was a hard pill for me to swallow,
Right.
to say, I'm sorry for him, but I said, I sympathize with his mother.
Yeah, I guess we could basically end it on that. To the families out there that are going through this, always stay prayerful. We just never know. I mean, it's just one of those things that it's crazy. It happens. You never know. Your family could become a victim of this. Watch your children. Just monitor their behavior. Monitor who their friends are. There's nothing wrong with that anymore. And you young parents, who people always knock and saying that you don't know how to parent or anything like that, some of you know darn well what to do. Just don't be your child's parent before you be their friend.
That's right.
Okay? Just be your child's
And lock up
parent,
your guns.
again, like I said, it's exactly. So again, but watch your kids, watch what they're watching on TV. Don't ever, when your child come to you with a question or a problem, don't ever say, I'll get back with you later. Stop and listen to what they have to say, because they're watching you too. And what you say, I have seen people spank a child for cursing.
Yes,
Good
yeah.
grief, he or she learned that from you.
Exactly.
So when you give that child a spanking for cursing, why don't you slap yourself too while you're at it,
Where did he get it from?
Where you get it from. So again, just so be careful, But again, Ms. Sharon, I appreciate you taking the time and coming. Like I said, we don't know who's gonna see this, but whoever watches this is just food for thought. We didn't solve no problem here
No.
because we're not that person or those persons, but we just bring you some insight, some food for thought. Think about what Miss Sharon was saying. She's experienced it, you know. She's a victim, you know, with her son and other things in her life. So just think about that. And if you have something you could do out there to help a young person, and then also if you see something, say something. Okay. I usually tell young people, I'm gonna close on this. If you do something wrong, don't tell me. Because if you tell me what you did and the cops come to me, I'm gonna tell them your name, your mama name, if you got a dog, a cat, how many roaches in your house.
Right.
So don't tell me nothing you don't want me to know, or you don't want them to know. I said, I'll help you, but I don't condone, you know, total stupidity.
Right.
You know, so again, I feel for you, but you gotta pay the piper.
Right.
Thanks a lot, guys, for this segment of Sonny Metcalf Talk is Cheap. It may have been a little heavy, but again, like I said, it's thanks to Miss Sharon again.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate her. And to all the parents out there that are going through this, just stay prayerful and stay focused. Put the anger aside. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with being angry, and sometimes just start trying to find some positive ways to uplift yourself